Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Tech Universal. Today we're answering one of the hottest topics in tech right now.
The GTX 980
versus the brand new hot 1080. Let's see how they compete.
Yeah.
Okay, first up to test, the GTX 980. It's a stock 980, it's not a 980 Ti, but I gotta say I was really impressed with the performance and the graphical capabilities of this card, even though it was a last gen card. Now, I can't really say that it was on the scale and it was capable of doing what the 1080 was able to do, but what it was able to do was really respectable. On the 3D Mark demo, one of the hardest GPU intensive demos that I could think of, its frame rate was fluctuating quite a bit, all the way to 35 with an all-time low of about 16. So one thing I really like about this GPU test in particular is that once you go through, and it's not just a GPU, but it does have a really good GPU program, but once you go through and you do the entire test, it'll go through your CPU, your GPU, and I believe one other component in your computer. It will give you an overall benchmark of how your build compares to the builds in the world, how they compare, whether it's 4K gaming or VR ready. It'll go through and it'll list your build and kind of give it a rating based on that. One thing that was kind of a bummer with the test on my computer was with the 980, I wasn't able to get that overall benchmark score because when it came to the CPU test, it was so intensive that it actually kept making my computer crash, so I was never able to get my benchmark. However, you will be able to get the benchmark from Scott, and we'll go over that in a second. And although that the 980 is not my particular card, whenever I game, I use a 960. The 980 is Scott's extra card. We popped it in for the sake of creating this video. And even though that it's last generation, I noticed a couple things that I really liked about it. One of them being that it ran really quietly once the intensity started to ramp up. And I mean, let's face it, for the amount of particle effects and all these other crazy things that are taking place in these tests, it did a really good job for being last generation's product.
Now the GTX 1080 is just an exceptional card. It's just a beast. For the Time Spy 3D Mark, it got a score of 6897, a graphics score of 7486, and a CPU test of 4772. Now the average FPS is around 50 FPS, and the lowest was about 16. So one cool thing that I like about this 1080, which is the Asus ROG Strix edition, it's got some cool LEDs in it as well. So you can actually change the LEDs to basically whatever color you want since it's ROG. If you want a pink build, you could do a pink build, red, because a lot of people do red, like my build. And I mean, you could do green, blue. It's got a pretty cool white. The GPU got up to about 62 degrees Celsius. And the GPU clocked itself up. This is without overclocking. It clocked it up to 2063. So that's a pretty good factory overclock. I mean, we can mess with the overclocking, get it higher, but I mean, it just overclocked itself to 2063, and that definitely was able to push it that much more over the GTX 980 as well.
Alright, final word, man. So we saw the test from the 980, we saw what the 1080 can do.
Yeah.
So I mean, we kind of have a ballpark that it's just absolute that the 1080, they don't even compare. It blows it out of water so much. So I mean, final word. What do you think?
So we saw that your build didn't quite get past the benchmark, and it didn't do well. So the 1080 got super high frames. It was probably around 50 to 60, and I mean, it just crushed the heck out of it.
I mean, there's really no comparison. I mean, the 980, it's still relatively new, right? I mean, it's last generation, but it's still relatively new, and it doesn't even come in the same ballpark as the 1080.
No.
So, would I recommend a 980? Yes and no. I mean, I would recommend it personally because I think if you're not like a really extreme gamer, you'll get by. But I mean, if you want that just absolute most savage build, I mean, you might do Titan X's, but I mean, you'll get by with 980s, right?
Yeah,
I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 1 or even 2. I mean, if you feel adventurous, you could do SLI.
Fuck it.